Godzilla Minus One is directed by Takashi Yamazaki, and this is now the 37th overall Godzilla film and 33rd from Toho. And this story is set in 1945 at the crisis of the end of World War II, where you have Godzilla pretty much wreaking havoc, and a kamikaze pilot is having to essentially survive. And along the way, he meets this younger girl that's trying to survive along with this baby that they come across. And along the way, they try to survive from everything that's happening with Godzilla and find a way to basically stop him from trying to stop Godzilla from wreaking havoc. If you've seen from a lot of other Godzilla film, it pretty much follows it to where, Godzilla's wreaking havoc, and then the army has to try to stop him and stuff, and it's all up into more of it's all about the pilot having to not only focus on basically the aftermath of Godzilla's destruction and stuff and trying to survive, but also basically dealing with his own personal war after basically serving in World War II. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, growing up, I've actually always been an avid Godzilla fan, and believe it or not, the first time I actually really ever, from as far back as I remember as a kid, my first introduction to Godzilla, I believe, was either the 1998 American version, or it may have been the 1954 one that Japan made, the very first film from 1954. Now, I was actually growing up into an era where I didn't really get to watch a whole lot of the original Japanese films, because whenever they would come on television, they would always be dubbed into English, and I really didn't get a chance to really watch much of the original films in the original language of in Japanese, because, well, anytime that they would broadcast on cable, they would always be in American dubbed. And so, believe it or not, this is actually the first Godzilla film that was solely made by Toho that I went to see in the theater that's entirely in Japanese. Because over the years, I always got basically spoiled with seeing the original 1998 version, and then eventually when we got into other stuff that included Godzilla 2014, when they were setting up the MonsterVerse and everything, it really got me really more curious on checking out the original series. And while there's a whole lot of Godzilla films I still want to catch up one of these days, after seeing this one, it really makes me want to go back and watch those and really see how we've come along these ways. Because from what I've heard was that for many years it always seems like Godzilla, anytime they made a Godzilla film, they never really had much of a continuity. You would get some stuff following the first original 1954 film, but it seemed like, I guess it's really like every 10 years or so they would always keep rebooting it to keep the generations going. At least that's what I'm probably thinking that they keep doing every time. And, I do have a soft spot for the American films that were made for Godzilla and stuff, because even though those films, have their flaws in their certain ways, well, I'm not going to go over the 1998 version, but I'm just saying as that original movie from the 1998, I look at it as just kind of a standalone monster film, kind of separate from Godzilla. And if you just take out the name, I can still watch it as a fun monster film. But going with the other movies that have come out, with the 2014 version, King Kong vs. Godzilla, and also growing up, I did see glimpses of some of the other films, but only in brief clips of it here and there, like with Son of Godzilla and things like that. So the only films that I really got a chance to watch that were made from Toho was just the original 54 version and the original Godzilla vs. King Kong. But those were only just the American versions from what I remember. So one of these days I might get a chance to go watch not only the Japanese versions, but also watch the other films as well, if I have a lot of time to really spend for it. But going into this, I really didn't really have much expectations, because I kind of got from the vibe from the trailers that it was going to be, another Godzilla film that was going to come out. And back in 2016, there was another film that they did called Shin Godzilla, which brought Toho back into theaters and everything. Well, limited depending on where you live at. And because for the longest time they were doing after the MonsterVerse came out in 2014, with that Godzilla, they were deciding to bring back into full force with, making Godzilla the villain again. Because for many years, other than the original 1954 version, it always seemed like they had a way of not really having Godzilla as a primary, like a solo villain, so to speak. And because a lot of the films, it was always him fighting other giant monsters and stuff, or being kind of a good guy in certain movies. And so with this one, going to the trailers, it really gave me into the vibe that they were going to do what I thought the 2014 movie was going to do at first, where it was going to be about, seeing the whole destruction of everything and seeing Godzilla scary. Because it really gave me that kind of vibe after watching this movie. And After upon seeing it, I can honestly say this is probably the best Godzilla film that I've ever seen in my life. Now, don't get me wrong, I still need to still check out some of the other ones, and I still need to, rewatch the original 54 version and all that. But from what I've seen, this is everything that I not only wanted Godzilla on a very good threat level, especially being a villain again, but also it actually really got me in touch with getting to the human side of the story that I've always wanted to see in these movies. And that's not a disservice with some of the other films that I've seen of the American versions, because I'm not going to really compare them because they're really apples and oranges. But I'm just saying that the stuff that I did want to see more of, like with the 2014 Godzilla, really encapsulates here, and that's coming a lot from the original source. They took what was going to probably be the threat level of seeing Godzilla as a menace and stuff, and take it to its advantage. And so, to get my pros out of the way, I thought the cast in this were really good. The main guy who plays the pilot in this, his name is Ryunosuke Kamiki. I apologize if I can't get the names right. He really shines in this, and this is actually one of those cases where I really felt for the human characters. Him being caught up in the war and stuff, where World War II's in and everything. Him trying to basically find a good life dealing with this girl that he meets, and also this baby that they also come across and everything. It does have a good family dynamic that I really enjoy, and I really felt for these characters a lot, and I really wanted to see how their story played out with this. And going through everything that what he's having to do to really survive and stuff like that, it kept me engaged and really showcased a lot of how the narrative really plays out. And also seeing some of the stuff that they actually do when planning on the attack for Godzilla, it's like they know the army and everything realizes that knowing what Godzilla is capable of, that they know that if their plan fails, they have to find a backup plan. And the movie does surprise me in certain ways. I can't go into spoilers, but I was really, really impressed with how they managed to pull it off, especially with the climax. And getting to Godzilla himself, he really shines in this. Like, this is probably the scariest I've seen with Godzilla, with him not only causing destruction, but the opening scene where it's all in the dark and everything, it was really not only give me the chills, but it was something that it really blew me away, especially with the way he roars and stuff, and then eventually when he does his atomic breath and things like that. So everything that I really love with seeing Godzilla as a kid and growing up, I finally get to see it on the big screen made by the makers themselves and stuff, and on top of that, I really love the design of Godzilla in this. He does kind of have the design similar to what the American versions have, but I still respect that in a good way because it really makes him feel like he's a full-on force. Him going in the water and stuff, and his design, even though it's all CGI and everything, gotta give a hand to him because the movie was only made for $15 million, but it still looks like it was made for a lot more. And the effects really, really are outstanding in this and how he designs, but also the atomic breath and just the destruction scenes and everything, they're really mesmerizing. And I always know going into these kind of movies that Godzilla's not my main focus, and didn't really surprise me. When he's used to its advantage the right way, and you want to see how it plays out. And on top of that, the score is really haunting in this as well, and it gives you that very epic type of vibe and very, moving through the action scenes where it kind of gave. I'm not gonna compare because this is a different. I'm not trying to compare, but it does give me that kind of epic type of score I would hear from a Christopher Nolan film in a good way, and I mean that as a compliment. And then just the cinematography is really great as well. It has that kind of very crystal clear water in certain scenes, and especially where it's all in the daytime and stuff. This really looks fantastic, and it also kind of has kind of a Jaws kind of level where it builds up to the monster and stuff. And I kind of wonder if that was their way of trying to be like a nod to Spielberg's classic film where you don't see the monster too much, but when you do, it has a good build up to it and everything, and a good payoff. And there's just more I'm going into detail, but that's really all I really have. And this movie has really little to no flaws because it was able to surprise my expectations, really keep me engaged, and it really felt emotional at times where I felt really for the characters I really wanted to see them out of the whole situation. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but if they make more of these come in the future, or if they do more reboots, I'm all for it. I really do want to see what they have next for Godzilla. And so, overall, I'm going to give the movie a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter, and this will definitely be on my best of the year of 2023. And so, For those of you who have also seen Godzilla Minus One and also the other films in the Godzilla franchise, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And as a bonus, I actually do have at least a Godzilla game. I have Godzilla Save the Earth on the original Xbox. So now that I've watched the movie, it's got me really wanting to check this out again and, you know, play it and, you know, kick monsters' ass and stuff like that. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.